It's been 6 months since President Donald Trump's historic tax cuts went into effect. We've all seen the tremendous impact they've made. Unless, of course, you're a rich elitist living in a high-tax liberal state. But that's okay. New York's Attorney General is suing Trump over your tax cuts. You might remember that not one Democrat voted for the president's tax cuts. Keep that in mind this November. Democrats spread vile rumors about the tax cuts. They claimed it would be Armageddon. Yeah, tax cuts that put money back in middle and working class families' hands? I guess that is the end of the world for corrupt Democrats. The tax cuts bill slashed taxes for workers and companies. Because of that, it allowed businesses to expand, hire more staff, and increase wages. Across the country, we've seen how so many people have benefited. Unemployment is dropping to record lows for all demographics. Who could complain about such a massive win? Liberal elitists. That's who. As it turns out, the super-rich in liberal states were paying less on their federal taxes. The SALT deduction allowed them to pay less in federal taxes. Why? Because they were paying through the nose for state and local taxes. That's right, my friends. If you're successful and live in New York or California, you are punished with higher taxes. Not a big surprise so many people are moving to Texas and Florida. Huh? This was clearly a scheme by liberals to take money from the federal government. But, thanks to the GOP tax bill, those federal deductions are gone. The super rich will have to pay high federal, state, and local taxes. Uh-oh. I guess it's time to move to Utah. Not so fast. The New York Attorney General has a solution, and that's to sue the government for the tax cuts bill. Her claim? It's unconstitutional. Gosh, you can't make this stuff up. Today, New York Attorney General Barbara D. Underwood and Governor Andrew M. Cuomo announced a lawsuit to protect New York and its taxpayers from Washington's drastic curtailment of the state and local tax, SALT, deduction. The lawsuit argues that the new SALT cap was enacted to target New York and similarly situated states, that it interferes with states' rights to make their own fiscal decisions, and that it will disproportionately harm taxpayers in these states. Source: Attorney General Barbara D. Underwood. In other words, Donald Trump is a big meanie who wants to take away all our money. Liberal states have exploited a broken dedication for far too long. They have taken advantage of the SALT deduction in order to milk their rich citizens of extra cash. Now, they fear that they'll lose out when those same rich citizens decide to pick up stakes and move elsewhere, maybe to a conservative state that doesn't punish someone for being successful. And by the way, what hasn't Gov. Cuomo sued the Trump administration over? This hack does nothing but complain about the great gains Trump is making for America. At the drop of a hat, he sues. Maybe, Andy, you should buckle down and try to help the people of your state, instead of attacking the President of the United States. But that would be unheard of. It's not as if Democrats do anything for their supporters. Breaking. We just filed suit to protect New Yorkers from the federal government's unconstitutional tax law, which drastically cuts the state and local tax deduction. New York will not be bullied. NYAG Underwood, at New York State AG, July 17, 2018. Let's also keep in mind that Underwood wouldn't be AG of New York, had the last one not been exposed for gross sexual crimes. I'm guessing New York should spend more time cleaning up its own government before it wastes tax dollars on lawsuits. Of course, Underwood doesn't want you to focus on that inconvenient fact. Instead, she tried to explain just how the tax cut bill, which you currently enjoy, is unconstitutional. The new cap on deducting state and local taxes is unconstitutional for two key reasons. It goes beyond settled limits on the federal government's power to impose an income tax, and it deliberately targeted, and will disproportionately harm, New York and similar states. NYAG Underwood, at New York State AG, July 17, 2018. There's nothing unconstitutional about that. Much like calling everything Trump does treason, you just can't throw around the term unconstitutional just because you don't like a federal law. The reality is, New York has been conning their citizens for years with unjustly high taxes. Now they have to face the consequences of that and are throwing a temper tantrum. Chances are, this lawsuit will never reach a judge's bench. If it does, it'll be thrown out. Americans were quick to grill Miss Underwood over her bogus lawsuit. For those scoring at home, NY is mad that the federal government doesn't have a tax break to cover their high state taxes. Daniel Darling, @DanDarling, July 17, 2018. Thanks for wasting my tax money on your demented, ludicrous, unconstitutional idiocy, you unelected moron. John Patriots, @JPatriots, July 17, 2018. Mad World News. This is a completely idiotic lawsuit. Idea that limiting a federal tax deduction in a way that applies equally to all states is a violation of state sovereignty is absurd. Philip Klein, @PhilipClein, July 17, 2018. This is the most ridiculous thing I have seen since the last most ridiculous thing. There is nothing in the Constitution that requires Congress to give any tax break at all for state and local taxes. I know you aren't that stupid, you are betting the people following you are. Feckless Crosspatch, @Victor123, July 17, 2018. Too funny. You do realize that the government has no constitutional obligation to even allow deductions? Apparently you attended a law school that didn't teach the Constitution. Robert Arnold, @RedDog17, July 18, 2018. Those are some pretty painful burns. Seems like regular Twitter users are more versed in the law than a state attorney general. How could that be? Maybe it's because Underwood, along with Gov. Cuomo, isn't interested in upholding the law. They just want to make a lot of noise, so that their brain-dead supporters think they are doing something. But my guess is the many middle-class and blue-collar workers of New York aren't interested in seeing the tax cuts overturned. Only a very small few rich elitists are hurt by the changes. Something tells me Cuomo is skating on some very thin ice at this moment. Knowing Democrats, he'll break through.